Hey folks, what's going on? This video is going to be a little bit different than what I usually upload. Today, I'm going to be talking about, drum roll please, Smallville. I know, a 20-year-old show that's probably just the same age as I am. However, I started watching it around last year, probably like at around the October timeframe. And ever since then, I've just been so enthralled with the show. It is so, how do I say it? Not just entertaining, but I am very much intrigued of the whole Superman ethos. And I've always had questions of what was Clark's life before he became Superman? Like what was his whole entire childhood and teenage years like? And, that's where Smallville comes in, right? So I have a special guest with me today who's also watching the show with me. Julio, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Julio, as you can tell, or heard from Ivan. I actually started watching Smallville as well last year, but I started watching it in the beginning of the year. The reason I started watching it was because I had just finished Punisher, and I was like, I need more superhero shows to watch. And out of nowhere, Smallville just pops up in my recommendation. I was like, what's this? So I click on it, bam, first episode, the pilot, and just start watching it. I'm like, holy wow. Like, this is such a good episode. Like, after that episode, I just got hooked. The opening was amazing and felt nostalgic for some reason. I've never seen the show before this or heard of that song before this. It just felt nostalgic for some reason. It was nice. I liked it. It was cozy. After that, I watched 2 whole seasons in like 2 weeks. And then I stopped. And then I recommended it to Ivan so he can catch up.
There you have it, folks. It's that good. And by the way, just huge spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about seasons 1, 2, and 3. If you have yet to watch either of those seasons, I would highly recommend to just click away, go watch all 3 seasons, and then come back and watch this. So you have been warned. Now, I'm going to start off with a little bit of season 1 real quick. I feel like, and I'm sure you can agree with this, Julio, the first season just felt like in every episode, Clark had to fight a new supervillain or somebody else that got exposed to kryptonite in the series, right? And
Yeah.
it didn't really feel like there was like this overarching story. It just kind of felt like every episode was its own little just its own little
story.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And I think they did that on purpose, mostly because just so they can, since this was airing at the time, people didn't have episode per episode like we do now. So you wouldn't have that episode that you missed potentially. You're like, what did I miss? It wouldn't have mattered because it's just another episode of him, Clark fighting somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that because I feel like you can watch episode 2 and then skip to like episode 14, which I actually don't remember how many episodes there are, but regardless,
22, I think.
You could like
26.
You could watch any episode and not really miss anything because again, like the first season is really just establishing the characters, Clark, Chloe, Lana, the main trio, of course, including his parents, and it's really just kind of showing his abilities, learning his new powers, as he's growing. And so it's very interesting to see, especially like I will never forget the second episode. I'm sure you probably haven't either. When I think in the second episode, it's like this little incident, quote unquote little, right? The guy is driving away. I think he's like trying to run away and he gets exposed to like these insects. And all of a sudden he gets infected and he becomes like this like bug.
Oh, the bug boy.
Yeah. And I just felt it was so weird when his mom walks into his room like, what are you doing, son? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? Why are you acting this weird? And he's just like, Mom, I don't care anymore. I'm gonna do my own thing. And then he just spits out like a bunch of web at his own mom.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching the show, it's like, what the heck am I watching right now? Because it's just the second episode. The first episode is just the introduction of Clark and where he came to be. But the second one, it just really took things to a whole nother level, man. How did you feel when you saw that?
Honestly, I don't remember much, but after I pull it up and see what it was about real quick, it was definitely a hey, this is a Superman film, like Superman show still. So things are gonna get out of hand, and this is what it is. Things do get out of hand like pretty fast, even though you don't expect such things to happen in a TV show. Sometimes, especially this early on, it's very impressive.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Like I was like, oh my god, like all right, this is how this is like the precedent of how the rest of the season's gonna be. Yeah, like every other episode, it just felt like it was just taking it to the next level with like craziness and all the things that Clark had to deal with. Like it's oh boy. But I want to really just dive into the characters and kind of just talk about one of the things that I've noticed, especially in the show, is like the large importance that Clark's parents have over his life and his decision making. Like pretty much the person that he is now is because of the Kents, right? And one of the things that
Yeah.
I tend to forget, especially about Superman, is well, I mean, he landed. Of course, we all know that he escaped planet Krypton. You know, it was gonna blow up and stuff, and his biological parents sent him away to planet Earth. But really, in reality, you know, he was raised by these by the Kents, and he became the person that he is, and he ended up being the superhero that he is, right? With all the being raised by the Kents.
With honor and hero like analogies.
Yeah, and I've always wondered, especially like if you ever watch Man of Steel with Zack Snyder, I felt that I've always had those underlying questions, like what was it like when Clark was growing up? Because I remember, like in the movie, it really is like this really fast montage of him. Just you see him throughout the years, as a teenager, real quick, and then he's like a young adult. But there was never really been a clear answer as to how he became the person that he is. And so when you watch this show and you see his parents, it really, it really, I was really surprised at just how do you say it?
How meaningful the conversations were, like, or how effective they were to Clark.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because a lot of the times, even though Clark is supposedly, technically, he's like an alien, right, from another planet, but he still feels like the
Yeah,
same raw emotions as a human. And I remember, like in
just
the
like a normal teenager,
yeah,
still going through like any teenager phase, just with superpowers.
exactly. And his dad, it would always reassure Clark and say like, "Hey, like you're more human than you think." Because I mean, like in reality, yeah, you're going through a lot of things and you're feeling a lot of emotions that most teenagers would normally feel. And I really like that because I think again, they're trying to hone into that point of, "Hey, Clark, you're just like us, right? Even though yes, you are from a different planet, you have these crazy abilities that no other person does here on this planet. You're still very
Mhm.
much just like a human being." And I really liked about this show because again, even though there are a lot of sci-fi, a lot of like you mentioned, crazy aspects of the show, it definitely still feels grounded to some extent
Yeah.
in reality right now. Of course, um not to say that we would ever see something like that in real life, of course.
Well, we never know.
Yeah, maybe we'll never know. But the way, even as far as how Jonathan can, the way he's willing to protect Clark, I think that is always. I feel like that any parent who is in a situation like that, I feel like that's kind of believable in the sense that, hey, he wants to protect Clark's identity. He doesn't want anyone else to find out about him. But of course, that brings up the question of like, hey, is that kind of a selfish thing to do. Like Clark has all these gifts, he can help people, he can do all of these things, which was brought into question. I think it was like the last episode of season 1, actually, when the reporter gets trapped in with Jonathan Kent and they're stuck underground, and he's having this conversation with them. Like, why would you keep Clark
in the cave, right? Oh no, not in the cave, but in the tornado or hurricane thing that was going on, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So he's making that argument, which he has a valid point. I'm not gonna disagree
argue against it.
Exactly, because in the sense that, hey, I mean, yeah, Clark could be out there in the world saving people every single day, but of course you got to agree with Jonathan and what he says. Like, hey, he's not ready. He's a little, he's still young. I think in the
he's
show,
still trying to figure it out. He's still trying to figure out who he really is the entire time.
Yep, and I think in the show he's like, what is he? I don't even know if he's like a sophomore or a junior in high school. I mean,
I think he's a junior in the first season and senior in the second season. I think because he gets the ring, his senior ring, doesn't he?
Okay. Yeah,
Doesn't
I know.
He get the senior ring.
I know he does. Yeah, I mean, either way, it's not too important, but he's probably somewhere around the age of like 16 to 18 years. Yeah, 17 years old. So yeah, I feel like that is. I agree with Jonathan Kent in the sense that that is a lot of responsibility for a young 16, 17-year-old kid to have. And yeah, you could argue and say that Jonathan is being a little selfish in the sense that he's hiding Clark from the rest of the world. But I mean, at what lengths would somebody go who didn't have, how do I say it? Didn't have the chance or the opportunity to have kids of their own, right? Because we all know that Martha tried to have kids and she was unable to. And then, of course, in the show, Clark shows up, and then that's that was like their way of having their own son, of course. But I really like the loving and the kind of warmness that they have, that the Kents, of course, and
it feels very natural.
For sure. And the reason I bring that up too, as well, is to bring this other point, is when you compare that with Lex's family and his relationship with his dad, it's a very starking difference. And of course, the show presents it very blatantly obvious. And the reason I say,
especially in the first couple episodes with the car crash as well.
Yeah, that too. In reality, Lex didn't want to be in Smallville. He was just like, hey, I'm only here as punishment because my dad told me so. And he definitely had this intention of like, yeah, like a devil may cry attitude. Like, I don't want to do this. This is whatever. This is only temporary. And of course, when you watch the show throughout the seasons, that starts to change, of course. But I don't know if you've noticed this too, Julio, but anytime when you see the Kents in their farmhouse, you can immediately tell that in the show it's presented in this very loving and caring atmosphere.
It's very bright. It's very sunny. It's never dark. And when it is dark, it usually means like something bad is going on in that household. Like always. Like, as for example, like for Lex, it always shows very dark tones. For example, Clark always visits him during nighttime, usually, which is weird. He just appears during night. Every time they show the house, it's usually during night. I don't think I've ever seen it during daytime. Like, even in the Lex Luthor Corp, it's usually like cloudy as well. I don't know if you got that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely 100% agree with what you just said, because it's very true. A lot of the times, most of the scenes with Lex, they're always taken in the dark right next to his fireplace. But it's kind of like a contrasting, almost like a split division. And the reason I say that is because on one side, of course, the fire is reflecting on Lex's face, and the other side is just darkness. And the reason I bring this up is because, especially when you look at the end of season 1, that last episode, there's that moment of the unknown. You don't know if Lex is gonna save his dad or not, right? It's this moment of like this defined moment for Lex because you're just like, oh my god, like is he gonna be just like his dad? Is he just gonna be,
Yeah, it's a huge turning point for the character. It's either he's gonna become his dad or he's gonna have some like self control and actually help him with like what the Kent has told him, like, hey, we help each other and all of this, we do it ourselves, love and family, all that stuff. And we get to see if this has ever affected him internally to Lex. If it happens or not. And then of course he ends up saving his father, and then the father's like, you shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have saved myself if I was in your position. And it's like, that's where we're different. And I'm like, oh boy, it's getting down. It's going crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh.
I always I want to say for season one, Lex is like the MVP for me because this is the first time that I've ever felt any care for the character because I've always thought he was like more of an evil Bruce Wayne. He really just wants to, kill Superman and take over Metropolis and the world and whatever, right? But in the show,
Yeah.
it definitely paints it in a completely different picture. It's really more like Lex is like almost like the older brother to Clark, right? And he's kind of mentoring
It's
him.
so nice. It's so nice to see that. It's like he's actually a nice guy. It's like, wow, I didn't know Lex was actually a good person. Like, it's crazy just to say that out loud.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of the times I want to root for him because he does do the right thing
Yeah,
occasionally, but there are some of his downfalls and there are moments where it's just kind of like, come on, Lex, you don't need to steep that low, right?
you can do better. I'm trying to cheer him on the sidelines the entire time.
Exactly. And but much more than anything, I really feel for him when he's trying to get the approvals of the Kens, more specifically Jonathan, right? Because
Yeah.
one of the things that I've noticed is even though Clark doesn't have all the materialistic items in the world, right? He's the Clarks aren't really known to be rich. He's
Hmm.
rich with love and care, and that's what you see in the show, right? You have this like you mentioned, this warm, glowing light, this very much welcoming presence in the Kent family. But when you look at the Lex and the yeah, when you look at Lex, it's this complete difference. Cold,
Yeah.
calculating. It's like
Backstabbing at every moment and turn. It's like always trying to figure out what the next step is. It's basically chess. They're just playing chess constantly, even within the family members. It's sad, really. It's just sad.
yeah,
There's no time for like, oh, I can't believe you would say that. That's so wonderful for you to say that. But in reality, it's like, I'm just saying that so I can get you back later on.
yeah,
Like,
literally.
damn.
A lot of the times, it's even Lex says it himself in the show. He basically always says like his dad is always calculating. He's always one step ahead, or he's always thinking ahead because he knows for a fact that he has something planned. And it's always mischievous, right? It's always in the sense of like his personal gain. He doesn't care much about, well, not to say he doesn't care much about Lex, but he
Well,
always
he
wants,
does, but
he
to a
does.
certain degree.
Right,
Well, not
exactly.
even to a certain degree. It's a different type of caring, and we do see that on the later seasons.
Yeah, for sure. And even in the few instances where like you can see Jonathan Kent being like, I don't know, I don't know if I can trust this kid. He's a Luther.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. When I first saw that in the show, I just felt like, he's just being a little mean to Lex, a little ignorant. Just I I don't know. I just didn't really like that Jonathan wasn't really giving Lex a chance. However, as you progress throughout the show, you come to learn and realize that this relationship between the Luthers and the Kents goes way back, further back
Mm-hmm.
from the moment when they received Clark, right? From the moment when they
Because it was like 30 years before, if I remember correctly. Because that's when Luther, the dad, forget his first name, but he came in to Smallville 30 years prior, and that's when they did like the whole corn thing, and they were trying to buy like other farms and all that stuff, and they got what was it, the manufacturing thing going on and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The Luthers have definitely had a presence in Smallville, and as a matter of fact, they are unironically they are one of the largest companies in Smallville. They're the ones that employ the most people because of their again like
Hmm.
their plants that they have in Smallville. And of course, we all know that even though they they do somewhat provide economic stability, they definitely still provide a little bit of chaos. And you can tell by what was his name again? What was Clark's best friend's name again?
Pete.
Yeah, Pete. Pete's dad specifically. You know, he
Oh
basically
yeah, because he was in the company, right?
yeah, Pete's dad, his whole family basically got screwed over by the Luthers. And he just, from
Hmm.
that point on, ever since his whole family got affected by that, he's always had this hatred towards the
Yeah.
Luthers because of that. And I don't blame him. I really don't. And yeah, it's a tough call. It's definitely one of those things that it's basically based on people's circumstances almost. And one of the things that I'm also still surprised by this show is just the interconnection between the Kents and the Luthers, because in reality, Jonathan Kent wasn't able really to get Clark to become his son officially, right? If it wasn't for Lex's or Lionel Luther's influence, right?
Lionel Luther. There you go.
His
Yeah.
ability, his way of pretty much persuading people, basically getting
The
anything he wants.
connections he built.
Exactly, his connections.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a very interesting take in the show because they're connected. They're very much
Yeah.
intertwined. It's this sense of like, oh my god. And in essence, it's almost the way I compare it is it's as if Lex, again, like I mentioned, it Lex almost feels like Clark's older brother. Like even though yes, they're not
Hmm.
biologically related, they are not related to one another. It's still
But the interactions,
yeah,
the
the
interactions, it's literally like a sibling situation all the way. Just siblings.
all the
It's amazing.
time. Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I definitely like the moments where like Clark is telling Lex like, "Hey man, you know, I really like Lana and all these things." And then
Oh yeah.
Lex is just going off about, "Well, what about the quarterback? What about Whitney, right?" And Clark has his always wanting to be righteous, always wanting to do the right thing, be
Mhm.
right by others, of course. He's always saying like, "No, I can't, you know, I can't just take her away because that would just be a very wrong thing to do." And of course,
Yeah.
Lex just comes in and proves the opposite, right? He says, "Well, if I were you, I'd take her either way."
Yeah, because she had just gotten single, right? It was just like broken up, the relationship with the quarterback at the time. Or they were like having a huge fight or something.
Yeah, there was definitely Lana and Whitney had like a little bit of a break between each other, and Clark could have really seized the moment. I think this is when they were at the when she was at the barn with him and they were talking, and of course the sun was setting. You know, it was like one of those
Hmm.
romantic moments, of course, and Clark was like almost there, ready to kiss her, but he just felt like, no, I can't do this. This is not
It's not
right.
the right time. This is not how I want this, you know?
Right. And you know, that just proves to show just how committed Clark really is. And I give a lot of appreciation to his parents because again, his parents are always the ones that pretty much guide him and tell him, you know, you always got to do the right thing, have integrity and all of these other things that you don't really see with Lex's family. Again, Lionel Luther, like you mentioned, he's a shark, right? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's really all about his personal gain. And I really like that the show presents those two starking differences because it's a very interesting take. I've never would have thought, you know, how the Luthers are somewhat connected to the Clarks. And this goes back history, of course. Um, Definitely not something that I would have expected from this show, but it does it in such a well presentation and really interesting view that I think it just really enhances the story. And in this universe, I really like that connection because you know in most other mediums, whether you watch Man of Steel or you watch the Superman cartoon, which I've yet to watch, which I might actually watch after this show,
Hmm.
you don't really see this connection between Clark and Lex. This is really more. I feel like this is really more a Smallville kind of thing. This is a producer director's choice for this show, and I think it works extremely well. I think this is a really, again, a really awesome take, and I never would have thought in a million years that Lex and Superman were at one point best friends. I always,
Yeah,
in most mediums, you always see them as like these
rivals,
yeah,
like constantly fighting each other, no matter what's happening. They're always at each other's throat.
basically. And so this show does it a little bit different. It's like, hey, what if Lex and Clark met each other at a young age, teenagers almost, and they were best friends? Like that to me really is a very interesting thing, and I really like it from the show. I think it really serves very well. It's a very good plot. And again, the instance and the moments where Lex has those gray moments of, hey, do I repeat, the sins of my father, or do I become a better person that he is? Those moments really make him stand out, in my opinion, because there's a lot of times where, yeah, he's over obsessed about Clark. He has like a little secret cave where he's constantly reviewing footage of the car crash at the beginning of the series, constantly questioning the fact, like, how is this possible? How did Clark survive?
How did you
that?
survive? Well, not even that. How did he survive as well? Like the whole point was that how did I survive this like death, tragic, like accident? Something that could have killed anybody else, but he survived. And it just goes to show it's like thinking and thinking and thinking about it. It's like, yeah, it makes no logical sense on how he survived, but if he had just thought about it outside the box at one point, I feel like he could have gotten the answer. Just maybe, just a little bit, just a little bit. It would have been a whole different show right there.
It's funny you should say that, because I also feel like the show really plays by Clark in a very convenient way. The reason why I say this is because there are plenty of times, dude, I never would have thought Superman would lose his powers so many times in like the span of like multiple seasons. This is crazy, especially when Lex confronts Clark about this, and he says, Clark, I know you have superpowers. I know you have abilities. So I'm gonna test you. And I think, what did he do? I can't remember if he did like some kind of test. He does something to Clark, but Clark is just like, dude, I don't have it.
It was a needle. It was a needle. I think it was with a needle.
Yeah, I think so too. And Clark is just like, dude, I don't have any powers. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's
like, yes, this could have been like done. Like, yes, I have powers. I'm sorry I've been keeping this from you, but like, you gotta understand from my point of view, I can't just let anybody know this or nobody know. And then maybe we could have had something else, like a whole different like time situation. And yeah, maybe Lex would have actually helped him out in keeping it a secret, But of course, we also have like, oh, you didn't tell me this. How could you? We're best buds. I'm gonna tell everybody. Just like in season 3, I think it was what, episode 7? No, not 7. Was it 7? No, 5. Lex for the save. No, wait, hold on. That was episode 4. Season 3. Because that's with the sleeping girl called Sora. And that's when Clark comes in. It's like we see the episode coming in. Lana is like skinny dipping basically with Clark at the beginning of the episode, which Clark is just smiling.
Yeah.
It's having a blast. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, but yeah. And of course, moments later, we see him in Lex's house, and that's when Lex is like telling him this whole story about the katana and everything. And short story, he tries to swing at Clark, sword breaks, and tells him, "How could you do this to me? I'm gonna do everything in my power to let everybody know who you are." And it's like, he wakes up. It's like, whoa, this could have been it. This could have been a thing in the earlier episodes when they were really getting together, you know.
Yeah. I knew that was a dream. I knew that had to be a dream.
Okay, to be fair, I didn't want it to be fake. Like I was like, this gotta be fake. And I didn't know this was a dream, but I was like, this has to be fake. And then I don't know. For some reason, I was really hoping for it not to be a dream or anything. Just one, he's skinny dipping with Lana, which is like his dream come true, which in a sense is the dream, you know. Um, he and Lex ends up finding, you know, about that situation, a secret, which is a huge deal, of course, but that's all right. He got to go with Lana in the end, but at what cost, right? At what cost?
Yeah. And kind of dissecting that a little bit, one of the things that I've definitely noticed is how very much there's a lot of sexual tension in the show for really for what it is, right? A bunch of high schoolers technically, right? I mean, yeah, you could say that this is the time where they're going through their hormones and growing and developing other things like that. Um can we just talk about for a second the whole love triangle with Lana and Chloe
Whoa,
in the show? Oh my
Chloe,
god.
Clark. Oh,
I
that's a whole other thing, man. That's a whole other thing.
I feel so bad for Chloe half the time. I'm like, girl, you gotta move on. I'm sorry. Like Clark just he's not looking at you. And really it's kind of sad because even in the show she admits it, right? And the fact that she always says like, yeah, like Clark and we went out for like one day.
Yeah.
And then like it was like the last episode, I think, of season 1. And then
Was it?
they go out to prom. They go out together.
Oh, that's what the storm. That's when it happens.
That's when the tornadoes happen and all that stuff. And then after that episode, season 2 comes in, episode 1, and it's like, hey, Clark, I think maybe we should just really stay as friends. And Clark is like, okay, yeah, sure. Which I thought that was so crazy. I thought it was kind of dumb. I was like, really? I would have loved to have seen them together at least for multiple episodes. I would have really liked that because
it would have been nice.
Because you know, you always see Chloe just trying so hard, trying to get Clark's attention. This essence of like, hey, I really like you. Do you feel the same way? And of course, Clark just kind of says like, what? Chloe? Nah, we're just friends.
You're my best pal.
Yeah, literally.
Like, shoot.
And I think in the show he mentions at one point that I think in the 8th grade or somewhere in middle school, Chloe moves into Smallville. And when they first meet, yeah, like she thought Clark was really cute, and at one point she kissed him right then and there. And then ever since then, it's just been more of like, yeah, we're just friends kind of thing. But I know for a fact that she has feelings for me, but I don't really feel the same way. And of course, we all know that, you know, Clark's true love is Lois Lane, or in this instance, Lana. And I just feel bad for Chloe half the time. And eventually that becomes a conflict between all of them, right? Because at one point, Clark he gets like exposed to the red rock, right? He puts on the red ring, and all of a sudden he becomes like this bad boy. And then of course, Chloe starts acting all bad. Actually, was she infected with something? No, oh, you know what? She was in the cave and she got stung by something in the cave, and that caused her to be like, you know, like Devil May Cry kind of attitude and didn't care about anything. And then that, like, I just thought it was kind of insane. This show definitely has like a lot of making out. That's like one thing I've noticed of this show. There's a lot of making out. And Clark.
What about Pete? What about Pete, man? What about Pete?
Pete hasn't gotten anything, dude. I haven't seen him. Well, he went out on a few dates, but I've never seen him like. He's always like
they don't show him.
He's always like a B character. He's always really just support for Clark, never really the main guy.
I wish he was up there. I wish he was up there. He's such a great guy.
Yeah,
I love him every time he's in in the screen time. It's like, where you been? I haven't seen you in a while, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Season 2 felt a little bit more streamlined. There was definitely much more of a story arc
Hmm.
because again, season 1 felt like every episode was like its own little thing, and really just we're just watching Clark kind of develop
Which
more and more
pretty
of his
much it was.
develop his powers. And season 2, we get introduced to the caves, right? Which I thought it was going to be like a one episode kind of thing and we forget about it. Because I really didn't believe this fact that his people from his planet came here and, made it like a whole story. I'm probably butchering it because I remember it was like the Indian reservation that believed their ancestry came from, their whole ancestry was displayed of their whole story in the cave. But in reality, it's very closely tied to Clark's origins and where he comes from Kryptonite. But or Krypton, yeah.
Krypton.
I just I thought it was gonna be like a one episode kind of thing and we forget about it, but it really became this overarching story that hey, yeah, like this is literally my story. This is where I come from. And then, of course, that's not even getting into detail with the whole key. And then when he opens it, and then
Oh,
it gives him
well,
this.
with the spaceship and all that stuff.
Oh God,
Yeah,
yeah. Let's
that's
talk
a
about
whole
that for a
mess.
second. The spaceship that is very. How do
Well, that
I
was
say it?
first season as well. That was first season,
Yeah,
second
that was a little bit of
season.
first season. We didn't get too much action of it, other than the fact that one time when Clark gets trapped in the basement, and he has
Well,
Ilana's necklace
and
on.
yeah, but John tells him about the ship first. It's like, hey, I think it's time. You know where you came from, basically. Like, kind of where you came from. Like, we found you in this ship, and we've been hiding it from you like forever, basically. Which makes sense, you know. He was still a kid. For all we know, he could have like told everybody, it's like, hey guys, I'm from like outer space, you know, somehow magically. But I do like the ship. I think the ship was a cool design overall. It was nice. Um, the key portion, I think that was awesome. Like, it was actually cool. Had little symbols and everything, so that was cool. Continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you said. In the show, we see the ship, right, with all the meteorites coming in, and that was when the day that Lana lost her parents, and that's when from that
Oh,
point on,
Lex lost his hair as well. Don't
of
forget.
course, Lex lost his
Yeah,
hair, and he lost all
his
his
gorgeous
allergies
blonde hair.
and illnesses. He got cured. Um,
Yeah.
And yeah, for a lot of the show, we don't really know much about Clark's origins. And when you mention right the when Jonathan shows him the ship and he starts talking about, hey, like yeah, we found you in here. And as the show progresses, you really start to find. I was very curious of Clark's origins because that's one of the things that keeps me watching the show is where did, what were the people like from Krypton? What were the things that they would do? And even though constantly, time and time again, we're shown Clark's biological dad as like this almost
Kind of evil. I will say evil in a
yeah,
sense.
yeah, very
Like,
much evil, totalitarian almost. Like if you don't do what I say, you're gonna die almost kind of
pretty much.
father. Um yeah, like I constantly had so many questions throughout the show, especially from season 1 and 2, right? I just had so many questions of like, again, like where does Clark come from? What was that life like before, right? I mean, not to say that he ever had that kind of life, but like what was his dad like? What was his parents like?
Yeah. And the thing is, well, I guess interesting thing is they don't really say that Krypton exploded. You know, parents sent them to Earth. You know, they haven't mentioned that at all. Not even in like their messages for display, the virtual message.
Well, they kind of did in the sense
Did they?
that yeah, if you remember Matt Reeves, the OG Superman, of course, if anyone's actually seen the
Mm-mm.
OG movies, he mentioned and he told Clark, like, hey, there was this
Mhm.
planet that was here at one point in the solar system, but now it's gone. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
actually transmitted a certain message, but I haven't been able to decode it because I haven't been able to fit, or I haven't been able to fit the right what was it?
Language thing.
Yeah, language. And mind you, I thought it was insane to see the OG Superman in Smallville, which I thought was really great. Matt Reeves is such a great guy, and the first Superman movie has been known to be one of the best Superman movies ever of all time. And Marlon Brando's
Mhm.
in it, so yeah, that alone would probably be a reason why you should watch it. However, yeah, I agree in the sense that we don't really know much. We still don't know much. Even up to season 3, you don't know much about his origin. You don't know much about his character. I know at one point, spoiler alert, um, his parents are going to come up at one point in the show. I know that. However, as to how that's going to happen, I don't know. I don't know what the context will be, but I can't wait to see that because I'm very much intrigued. That's one of the only reasons why I still watch the show. Every time I see the whole love triangle relationship between him and Lana and Chloe, I'm just kind of like, ugh, all right, whatever, move on. And then it's the same way when it's like Clark and Lana, it's like,
Yeah,
Clark, do you love me or not? And it's like this instance of like, I do want to love you and I want to be together with you,
I just can't. I
but I
can't.
can't because it's too dangerous, and
Yeah.
you can get harm, and I don't want to lose you. And
See,
so,
that's the thing. That's where it annoys me a little bit because it's like they're getting harmed regardless, just because you're around them. Either way, like not even if you're around them, just in general, like they're coming into these like life and death like situations regardless, and it's like I might as well go with you at this point just so I can keep you close by, you know?
yeah, I completely agree because no matter what, even with Lana, she is always in like the wrong circumstances with a lot of
She
guys in the
attracts
show.
danger. She
Also,
attracts danger. Period.
I'm pretty sure the
Period.
writers meant this to happen, but every time, I don't know if you feel the same way, but every time I see Lana with another guy, it just kind of annoys me because it's like,
Mm-hmm,
not
mm-hmm,
Clark.
mm-hmm.
It's
I'm
not
like,
Clark.
you
Like,
can do better. You can do better.
we all want to root for Clark because it's like Clark and Lana are meant to be together. And anytime she's with any other guy, we're just kind of like, oh, great, here we go again.
Yeah.
And it's just so annoying sometimes. But I'm sure they do that on purpose, of course. The writers
Oh,
are
for sure.
the writers are
Because
very good at that.
we have to see how Clark reacts to these situations, you know. For example, like the latest episode we watched for season 3, episode 7, we had this guy who's basically Magneto.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, dude can control metal objects and kind of like what? No, it was just metal, right? Or
Yeah.
like metal frequencies or like magnetic frequencies.
Yeah, well, I just thought it was weird that he would just touch Lana and then Lana would just feel this attraction towards him, which I just felt like, wow, that's really on the nose here.
Well, they did explain it basically near the end of the episode,
Yeah.
but yeah, at first it's like there's no way you can do this. Like you're bringing in magnets. How is this even possible? You know. And we do see Clark's reaction to this. You know, he becomes jealous. And then his father's like, hey, Clark, you know, it's okay to be jealous, you know. You have to let her be herself, you know, like it's just natural. It's like Clark's like, you're right, you're right. But then he like starts thinking again, it's like, there's no way Lana would go out with him, you know. And Chloe's like, oh, he's hot. I'm like, no, he's not.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know where this chick is coming from. Chloe's like high on crack or something, but
Chloe just gave up. It's like I can't have Clark. Nobody can, you know. She's trying to push Lana to like everybody else at this point.
and that reminds me actually, I feel so not just bad for Chloe in the sense that, she didn't win Clark, but she's stuck in a really crappy situation with both Luthers, both Lex and Lionel, because Lionel's like,
Mm,
hey, do you want to be the youngest columnist on the Daily Planet? And it's like, yeah,
which is
sure. This is a
awesome.
great opportunity,
It's,
right? But even though we all know that Lionel always has an agenda, he always
yeah.
has something at the back of his hand in the sense that, hey, I'm gonna get you this thing, but you're gonna owe me a favor, and that favor is gonna be very costly. And of course, in
Yeah,
the
and you can't
show,
say no to it. You just can't say no to that favor, regardless of how much you want to try.
oh
You're
yeah,
forced to say yes. It's just
exact
insane.
exactly, yeah. I mean, basically, the way Lionel Luther does it, it's like, hey, I mean, wouldn't it be really bad for you if your dad just lost his new job, even though he
Yeah,
just got
and
this
he
new
just bought
promotion?
this house, over
Yeah.
here, and it's like, what can I tell him? It's like it's heartbreaking. It's like she's like, wow, like you're really gonna go there, huh? Like he has nothing to do with this. He's like, well, I don't know what to do. Like you leave me no choice, really. It's like, damn, he's pulling all the strings right here.
And when I watched this, I'm not sure if you felt the same way, but when the
Mm.
last episode of season 2, like she has this starking opposite attitude, personality almost. Like she has like dark
It was a
eyeliner.
180.
She has
Yeah.
black clothes and everything, basically almost pulling a Toby, but she
Hmm.
basically was just this essence of like, yeah, I'll give you everything I have on Clark because
Yeah,
she,
without a second thought.
because she saw him and Lana making
Um,
out and she was just like, "Oh my god, like I lost him forever. I could never have him. You know what?
mhm.
Screw it. I'm just going to
I'm gonna ruin
backstab
his
him."
life. Yeah.
But we know, like you mentioned, we know that in season 3 that doesn't happen, right? She protects Clark. And
Hmm.
what I also want to add, segueing into this, I like that the show has consequences and not every episode is like
Huge
this.
consequences.
Not every
Huge
episode is this fine and dandy. Oh yeah, Clark saves everybody. We all live happily ever after. No, I mean we know what ended up happening on the last episode of season 2. Martha ends up losing the baby, which is
Which was heartbreaking.
I when I saw that I was like, oh my god, this show just went there. This show really took it to that level, and
Hmm.
as much I don't want to sound sadistic and mean when I say this, but I like it when shows have that kind of reality. I like it when shows really have those kinds of um how do I
Real
say?
life events, situations.
Yeah, like
Like, yeah, you could, like, you have the baby, but there's still a chance to lose it regardless. Like, it's still heartbreaking no matter how you see it.
pretty much what I'm getting at is there is actual people there is actually a loss in the show, which is what
Hmm.
I like because I think that's what makes shows good, right? Because of course, like, yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
can have happy endings and everybody lives happily ever after and we all forget about it. But it comes to something like this, something so grave and something so sad that the entire season 1 and mostly of season 2, you have this notion of Clark that he's always going to do right, that every decision that he makes, it's with the benefit of good and he just wants to protect those he loves. But in
Hmm.
this instance, it backfires on him. He doesn't tell his parents that he's going to destroy the ship. And because of that,
Yeah.
this whole situation happens where, uh, Clark's parents are coming from Lex's wedding. They're driving back to the farm. Clark is destroying the ship. And immediately when he does destroy it, everything just goes haywire. The truck flips
Huge
over
explosion.
and the whole accident happens. And then you come into the very end of the episode and it's just kind of like, hey, like I've lost my own little brother, my own little
Brother.
sibling or sister, whatever. And he has this guilt with him. This sense of like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like I was only trying to protect my family and I messed that up. I thought was a very good representation of it. I really liked it. The fact that, hey, even though for the longest time, we all know for a fact that Superman has this sense of righteousness, he always makes the right choice.
Hmm.
That's what he always does, right? Because I mean, that's why he's one of the leaders of the Justice League. But in this show
Yeah.
here, I mean, he's of course he's a little bit younger, a little bit inexperienced, and they show that with with the whole incident that happened. I really like that because we know from watching the show how he ends up being the person that he is later on in life, right? As a Superman, because like well, in this universe, I should say, he's making all these mistakes and he's learning as he's going, right? Not to say that, it justifies the fact that he lost a sibling, of course. No, I
Yeah.
don't condemn
Yeah.
that in any
No.
way. But because of that moment in his life and because of that incident, he learns from that and he realizes that, hey, dude, like, yeah, like every decision I make really affects all facet of reality, not just my friends, but my family, of course.
Yeah, it was a huge turning point for him. Like the realization and then what he does after, which takes us back to season 3 at the beginning of the episode. We see him literally robbing a bank.
Yeah. But,
Which I was like, what?
but
What is going on?
before we get that, can we just say, I know, and I'm sure you probably felt the same way. I was so angry when Clark was like, he puts on the red ring, and Pete even tells him, he says, Clark, don't do this. Like, do not put the red ring on. You
This is
know what it's
not
gonna
the
do to
way.
you. It's gonna
This is
make
not the
you.
way, man.
It's gonna turn you into a Toby. Don't do this, man. And then what I mean by Toby, I mean like Spider-Man 3, like, I missed the part when that's my problem kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he puts it on and he's just like, I don't want to feel anything. And when he said that in the show, I was like, oh my God, we lost Clark. We this is not Kansas City boy, not Kansas City boy. This is not Kansas boy anymore. He is this completely, totally different. I don't give a crap anymore. I am just gonna go do my own thing. And in the last moments of season 2, Lana's like, Clark, don't go. Like, don't carry this guilt on you, please. Like, I love you. We've all been waiting for those 3 words to come out of her mouth for so long. And the one time he finally gets it, he's just like,
he's not in the right mood, man. He's not in the mood.
He's not in the right mood. He's angry. He feels ashamed. He feels guilt. He's just like, Lana, I don't need this right now. You don't deserve me. I can't do this right now. And then boom, he's just gone in his motorcycle, goes all the way to Metropolis, which, oh my God. Yes. Segueing into season 3.
Yes.
Like I mentioned before, when we've had our own little private conversations, episode 1 of season 3 has got to be one of the most badass episodes that I've ever seen of any superhero show, and that's even comparing with Daredevil, by the way. However, yeah, it was basically literally from like a comic book, and the idea that the whole department of Metropolis, the police department of Metropolis, all of SWAT shooting at Clark as he's robbing a bank has got to be one of the most what the hell moments is going on right now. Like all of Smallville from season 1 and 2, you have this notion that Clark is this righteous, this caring, very much respects his mom and dad, like this loving boy, and then all of a sudden he's just robbing a bank. Like, what is going on, man? Like,
he's not there yet. He was robbing like the little machines. He was robbing the machines at first. That was the first scene.
Yeah, he was robbing ATMs, but it only escalated higher, and now he's robbing banks.
See, that's the thing. Like, honestly, I didn't think he was going to do that because we had the robbers there, right? And it's like, oh, give me your money, right? Clark just comes in with the bike, breaking the glass window, so cool. Him with the mask, I was like he's gonna do some good, he's gonna do some good, like deep down he knows he needs to do this, right? Just to like get back in the groove, Dude just steals the money from the robbers himself. I'm like, what? Like, he just walked out, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, that was a big moment for me because I don't know if you thought the same thing when I did, but when I saw him with the ski mask, I thought, oh, that's like a Batman moment right there. Like, I don't know if this is an homage to Batman. Because in Batman Begins, it's the same way. Bruce Wayne is, when he's starting off, his first year, Batman year 1 almost, he's wearing a ski mask. And so when I watched the show, and Clark's doing that. It's just kind of like, okay, like you have this pre-notion that he's gonna do the right thing, right? He's gonna stop these guys,
Of
and he's
course.
just straight up like, "Hey, man, what are you doing with my money?" It's like, oh my god, dude, this guy is basically
Yeah.
pulling a GTA 5 over here. It's just being like, yeah, I'm just gonna take your money. Don't ever screw me over. But going into that season, then he's like working with like the kingpin of Metropolis, Mr. Edge
Which is
himself.
insane. Because the fact that he found Clark literally in the next day is just insane. Like, Clark had a ski mask and everything. Dude got found out the very next day with, like, he had powers and everything. And it's like, this is insane how much, like, connection there was in this city to find Clark. His place, who he was, and everything. And it's like, wow, how come this didn't happen in Smallville, you know?
Well, I mean, it's Mr. Edge. You know, he has powers and connections. He's basically, again, the
Well,
way I describe him as Mr. Mini Kingpin himself.
so does Lionel Luthor, technically.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't compare Lionel. Well, actually,
They're kind of buds to some
yeah,
extent.
they're best friends, of course. But I thought it was seeing Mr. Rugged Hauer himself. I'm like, yeah, I've seen this guy in many movies before, and seeing him in Smallville, I thought was kind of insane. Um, he's definitely a very recognizable actor. I've seen him in a lot of different movies, and seeing him as Mr. Edge, I thought was just kind of insane. I would consider him probably like, I don't know if he would be like an A-list celebrity or a B-list. No, I would call him probably an A-list actor almost. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he,
because as soon
he's
as he showed up and started talking, I was like, I hate this guy, but like in a good way, you know? It's like he's doing such a good job that I hate him. Like playing the bad guy, you know?
yeah, I sure, but like the way the point I'm trying to get at is like every time you see him, you're paying attention because you know he's got something to
Mm-hmm.
say. You know he's gonna tell something to Clark, and this idea of like,
Ooh.
hey, I got a job for you, kid. You in it or not? And it's just kind of like, dude, I can't believe that Clark is going down this path. You almost believe, or you're almost just enthralled in the sense that Clark is not this guy. He is not this bad person. He doesn't rob banks, right? But here he is doing that exact same thing. And it's just insane because the entire series, especially season 1 and 2, you see him as always doing the right thing, always trying to
Mm-hmm.
save people, always ensuring that nobody gets hurt. This is just the complete opposite from him, and that's
Yeah, he doesn't care.
honestly, I like it to some extent because
It
yeah,
was nice. It was nice to see, I will say. But to a certain point, when he would take off that ring, I was like, just leave it off, man. Just leave it off. Go back home, you know. It's like just go be you again, you know. Don't put that ring again. Don't put it on.
I I felt like he. I just felt so bad for him. I really felt bad for his parents, especially when Martha was like
Oh,
telling Jonathan like he will come back when he needs to. He will come
yeah.
back. I just know it. And I just can't help but think that was like mother's intuition of like, he is my son. And I know him well enough that he's going to do the right thing.
hmm And then you see him doing like horrible things.
Yeah, it's tough to
It's
see
like
that.
heartbreaking.
It's
It's just
it's
heartbreaking.
very heartbreaking because again, you see in the show that he's always this loving and caring son,
hmm
always wants to protect people, but then he just becomes this absolute monster almost because of the
Yeah,
red
the ring.
ring. Yeah,
The
the
ring.
ring, really.
And to be fair, I still don't understand what the symbol was for his chest. Like, why was it an eight? And I do get that we see that in the seventh episode.
I think it's the eighth
No, the
episode.
sixth episode. Six. With going back to the past. Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Oh yeah,
6.
that's the one. Oh, that's 6. Okay.
Yeah, that one was great. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they don't really explain what the symbol really means. So I was confused the entire time.
I don't. Yeah, I still don't know much about the history behind that. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm
Like,
still watching the show is because I want to find out more about his history.
yeah, every time they show something new, it's like, how does this affect him right now? There's always something of his past that is affecting him in the present, no matter what it is. The ship, his blood, technically it's always, but the pendant, the symbols, the ring, the kryptonites, technically all from the past. Well, from his hometown at least, home world.
I I just feel that much more than anything else, when you look at Clark and the whole actually he never really had a whole relationship with Lex's fiance wife and the
Mm,
whole blood
yeah, it was just like a scene. It was just literally a scene or two, and that was it.
right. I just you know, I just want to talk about this real quick. I really just felt like, damn, I really thought that Lex's wife or fiance, I should say, was really like this pure and true character, always doing the right
Yeah,
thing.
it was like, oh, maybe this person's gonna bless you.
Oh, sorry. But continue.
Um, yeah, because this person was gonna be like the light for Lex. It's like this is the person that's gonna take him out of his like shadow, his dark room. It was gonna be so nice, to see like a new version of him. And then it turns out that Lionel was like hired her just to like spy on him and all that stuff, right? It's like at the end, it's like, wow.
Yeah, I don't. Especially at the end of, yeah, I think it was at the end of season 2 after the whole marriage and wedding, and realized that she really, I don't know. I guess would you call her almost like grave digger, gold digger, I should say, because he really only wanted to have all the money.
Pretty much.
Basically, kill off Lex, take everything he owns.
Well,
And
that wasn't part of Lionel's plan. That was just her plan.
that was her plan because they did have like a little bit of a deal, so to speak.
Mhm.
Yeah, which that that is all kinds of messed up
And she
because
still has the audacity to say, I still loved you, by the way. Like, it's like, nah, no, you didn't. Like, come on, you did all of this, and you're saying, I still loved you, but we'll still have the divorce regardless. It's
yeah,
like,
it's
whatever.
I completely agree with that. I I don't know. After season 2, you just never believed her after that, and I just felt like, yeah, no, this chick is really just going after the Luthers' money. She never really had this intention of maybe, or actually, she did say it herself. Herself, she said Helen was like saying like, I still love you, Lex. I actually did fall in
Mhm.
love with you at the very
Yeah.
last moment after I screwed you over. I actually did fall in love with you, but
Yeah,
by then it
after,
was too
I,
late.
I, I sent you to the island to die, basically. Like, I
Yeah.
loved you then, after. I loved you after, because I got all the money.
It was just so convenient, and I'm just kind of like, dude, what? Like, it just makes no sense. And I agree with Lex in the sense that he says, like, no other person, no other woman would ever love me if I were to admit for the mistake that I made, which was, of course, stealing Clark's blood sample from her office, the whole patient to doctor um,
Confidentiality.
confidentiality. Any other person would have just left Clark and be like, "You're insane. You're crazy. I'm never gonna
Yeah.
marry you."
She apologized him in an instant. It's like, you're okay. No harm, no foul. But it's like, this is your career, you know, these are the oaths you take, you know, from being a doctor. And you just like shove it off like it's nothing. Like, it's okay, you did this. You know, it's insane.
I, yeah, I just don't know. It was definitely kind of a little suspicious because at that point you don't know if you could trust her.
Exactly. And back to, you know, the final time we see her, which was her saying, "Oh, I'll see you later," you know. I'll give you some time. I do think we will see her again later on. Maybe near the final season or next season, potentially. But I think that might be the final time we see her.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah, Helen just disappointed me after that. I was like, yeah, no, girl, I think probably just as worse than Lionel Luther, honestly.
hmm
Um,
Well, not as good because Lionel would have killed him if he really wanted to do that plan.
maybe,
Well,
maybe.
that's what Lex says.
And that reminds me, I really liked the episode where it was basically almost like a bank heist at the Luther Corp company building,
Yes.
which was kind of insane. And this whole ordeal that Lionel has like tons and tons of kryptonite just lying in his safe. And of course the guy who's like robbing him is like, what is this? What is this green
Yeah.
bar? Like
This is useless, you know. I don't know what the currency is for this, you know. It's crazy.
he's just like, yeah, like I don't what even is this crap? I don't need this. I thought there was gonna be like a vault filled with money, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, and all of a sudden all there really is just a bunch of green bars. Come on, man. But in reality, we all know that that's actually kryptonite. It's probably worth even more than $1 million, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, he does get that notion of like, oh, okay, if Lionel Luther believes this is worth a lot of money or a lot of value, then I must believe that this could be worth a lot of money.
Yep. And that's why they take it.
That's why they try to take it. And of course, we all know that Clark comes in
Jumps in
for the
from the other
rescue.
building.
Yeah,
From the other
from the
building.
other building. I thought he was gonna learn to fly. I was like, oh, dude, this is it. This is when he's gonna finally get the ability to fly. And of course, that did not end up. He just jumped from the building, basically pulled another
Yep.
Toby, and just jumped, smashed into the building. And I was like, yep, that's how he's gonna. That's how he's gonna go in, which I thought was kind of. Also, can we talk about what was his name again? It was the little boy who could read people's minds. I really loved him.
Oh my
I thought he
god.
was great.
Was he in season 1 or 2?
He's in both
I was saying it was in the
seasons.
really.
Came in both seasons. His name I can't remember.
I don't know, but he was such a good kid.
Gotta.
It's like, hey, Clark, by the way, she likes you. It's like, oh,
Oh, thanks,
thanks.
buddy. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. And of course, you know, he's like, you don't have to keep doing that, you know. It's like, let the thoughts be private. That's nice. I kind of hope we do see him again later on, just for fun.
Yeah. Gosh. Is it Pete?
No, Pete was. Uh, well, regardless, you know, instead of him jumping, I feel like he could have just ran. He literally could have just ran up the building instead of jumping across the building. Because he's so fast they can't see him, you know?
Yeah. You know, I feel like when I saw that episode, I feel like there hadn't been any other high tension feeling or the sense of suspense other than when Clark had to face what was the name? The one that had like it's when Clark has to save everybody from the plant when everybody goes on that school field trip. I think it was in season 2 and it's at the Lex it's at Lex's plant, the one that he has been entrusted with in
Oh, the
Smallville.
plant. Okay.
Yeah, and his dad, Lionel Luthor, just comes in earlier in the episode and he's like, "Hello, everybody. You're all let go. You're all fired. This whole plant is gonna get shut down. So good luck with that." um, and in that episode, I think that was when they get kidnapped. Yeah, all the students are held hostages.
Yes, which was insane. And I think this is the only time that Clark wasn't there, right?
Oh, he was there, but I think
Well, but not in the hostage, or was he?
yeah, he was there. He got punched in the
It was.
face, and I just thought it was kind of funny because it's like he's kind of faking it almost.
Yeah.
And of course, Whitney's trying to get Clark like get him to like, hey man, like let's take him down. We can both take him down, and then Clark is like, nah, dude, I can't do it. Right? He obviously does that in the sense that he doesn't want to reveal his super strength. He does. Oh, like Clark is this awesome super being, right? And Whitney's just like, oh, Clark is such a little wimp. He can't do anything. I thought that was a little funny. Also, can we just give like can we pour one for my boy Whitney because I thought that he was going to come back with like superpowers with Lana's kryptonite necklace after he sends him to the bus and he joined the army. I thought, dude, this guy's going to get shot in the middle of battle and he's going to come back resurrected. He's going to come back to Smallville and he's going to be like, Lana, I'm alive. I'm okay. And I have these super abilities. And I thought there was going to be a whole...
Technically, it did happen, but not that way.
It didn't happen that way. Instead, what we got was, hey, remember that chick that was basically an incubus that could basically turn into anybody at any given moment?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the shapeshifter.
The shapeshifter who basically took over Whitney, which I thought was kind of weird. Like, can you imagine? Like,
that was an interesting episode.
Transforming into a guy and just being like, Lana, crazy. You love me and I love you, so we're gonna be together forever.
Yeah.
Like, were you just gonna be a guy for the rest of your life?
If
like,
she had to, she probably would have. Honestly,
I honestly believe that. I just don't. I find that really hard to believe in the sense that she was just gonna stay like Whitney for the rest of her life because she had this really bad infatuation for Lana. She wanted to basically become her or basically live with her.
Which she technically did become her in once. Because Clark mistook Lana for the shapeshifter Lana at one point.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And also the shapeshifter did kill her mom, which was insane.
Yeah,
I did not think that would happen in this show.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was surprised by this show too, in the sense that again, there are consequences. People die in this show, which is insane. Because in most shows it's just kind of like, yeah, everybody gets saved at the last moment and it's okay, right? Everyone's gonna live happily ever after. But
it's
no,
all happy. It's all happy.
But no, absolutely not. Like this is one of the few episodes where, again, like that chick that was obsessed with Lana ends up killing Whitney's mom. So with a baseball bat, if I remember correctly, and it's
and stuck her in the grandfather clock, which is insane. Now I'm a little bit afraid of getting myself one,
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, because was it prior or after that they mentioned that his son was dead, and then he comes back
I think it
as a
was
shapeshifter?
I think it was before, and then like the actual army guy comes in, and he's just like, "Yeah, your son's dead. Like he's actually dead. You
Yeah,
know, like he. I don't know
and that's
why.
why she had to die, right? That's why she died. She found out.
Well, it's not that she found out and died, but it's well, if you're talking about the mom, yeah, like that's when she had to kind
Yeah.
of end it right then and there. But shapeshifter died after Clark
Well,
tried,
that's after.
yeah, tried saving her, but she ended up
Not
landing on
really
a
saying.
pitchfork conveniently.
Yeah. Speaking of the pitchfork, that actually comes back to bite Lana. Like, because Lana was like, "Oh, like you weren't trying to save her. You just wanted to like kill her or whatever."
Well,
She lands on the
you
pitchfork.
mean it affected Clark and his
Well, no,
credibility?
yes, but Lana literally, I think it was what was it? I think it was it episode? Let me see.
It was like I think episode
Kryptonite
4 or
Bullet. No, it
5
was.
from season 3
Was it?
where she goes on to be all this high, mighty, and righteous of like, well, Clark, you ob- you have constantly been holding secrets from me, but even then, it still doesn't explain the fact that you ended up murdering,
Oh, that
um,
was episode 2, I think.
somewhere around
No.
there, yeah. Which is kind
Yeah,
of,
because 3 is with the Krypton. Oh wait, no. No, wait, no. 3 is with the Kryptonite bullet.
oh yeah, that was such an
Yeah,
interesting episode with the guy that made Kryptonite. Another topic to talk about, but yeah,
yeah.
eventually, yeah,
Wait,
you're right. That does come to bite Clark in the end because he's just like,
no, not Clark, not Clark. Lana, because she's trying to help Martha escape from the ropes when she's entangled. Actually, no, it was. I think no, it was the first episode. It was literally the first episode, I think, or the second episode, because that's when the the bad guy from Metropolis comes in to Clark's farm and like makes their parents hostage, and then Clark has to go with him by force for the blood. Then Lana comes in, sees Martha, you know, tied up, goes in, tries to help her. Uh, the bad guy comes in, he shoves, I think he kicks him, and then he lands in the pitchfork as well, and he dies. So Lana also killed somebody else.
okay, oh, I see what you mean.
Like
Yeah.
you see what I mean? Like that
Uh,
pitchfork
well,
came back technically.
well,
Like
it's not the same pitchfork because
well,
Clark,
it's not. Of course, it's not the same one, but
because Clark in his instance he was defending Lana, right? And of course, well, I mean they both had their own instances where they had the right to defend themselves, and like you mentioned, Mr. Edge brings his group of guys and they're at the Kent's farm. They're being held hostage, and of course she comes in and defends herself, kicks the guy,
Mhm.
falls into the freaking pitchfork.
Pitchfork,
But Clark doesn't even
which I
see
was like,
that.
whoa.
Clark doesn't
No,
even.
but Clark never saw the pitchfork in the other one either, no? Or did he?
Well, he was the one that kicked the chick, the incubus, to the
Well,
pitchfork.
yeah, but
He
did
killed her.
Lana
He
see that?
literally killed her. He
Well,
literally.
yeah. So did Lana. He
Well,
killed him.
I would say in Clark's defense, it was really more of an accident. I don't really think it was supposed to happen, but
Of course.
I feel like in Lana's circumstance, it was
It was do or die.
yeah, it was a do or die situation. Yeah, you can call it a accident as well, almost, but I find it hard to
Yeah, because
believe.
it magically landed on the pitchfork, and she was surprised by that fact.
But it doesn't really bite her in the end because Clark doesn't like
Well,
hold
no.
it against her in the sense of like, oh, you killed
Yeah, 'cause-
somebody, I can't date you anymore. We can't be together because you're a murderer.
Yeah,
So,
you're a vigilante now, you know? It's like, oh, how could you?
well, that's what she tells to Clark, right? She tells him like, "Oh, it's so
Exactly.
convenient for you to say that you were just defending yourself." You know, that's what a vigilante would say. But I think she was under the influence of Mr. Magneto over here. Um, when they were getting ready to leave
No,
from
that was
Smallville.
that was episode 3 with the bullet.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yep, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay, I just remember. Yeah. Also, can we just talk about the guy who fucking just makes kryptonite bullets just right out of nowhere? This is a high schooler, mind you,
Hmm.
making kryptonite bullets. How is this even possible? Like, I more than likely he probably learned this from his dad. That's where I kind of got it from. I was like, probably just his dad trained him. He's from the
Because they
army.
did everything together.
Exact,
Everything.
exactly. And so I just felt like this is so hard to believe, almost
Yeah.
in the sense that this high school kid would be capable. Yeah, my best friend was a creep, and he was stalking Lana underneath the water, man,
Mhm.
underneath the pool. Like I can't.
And that's the weird thing, because it's like you guys were buds, and it's like within 6 months, you're like, he's a freak. I need to kill him now because of that. You couldn't be like, maybe he's different, you know? Maybe these people are just, just like humans, you know? There's good and bad ones. But no, he had to kill every single one of them. And in this case, it was justified, of course, because Lana was literally being dragged underwater, so it makes sense. But I don't know, it was a bit much, I will say. But I will say that the way it starts, it was a little scary with Lana just like swimming. I don't know where she hears sounds like nobody's there. I thought he was gonna be in front of her, but he was underwater. I was like, oh my god. Like, I can't.
I,
This is too much.
yeah, I definitely felt a little creeped out that he was just hiding underneath the water and just looking at her swim, which I thought was like, wow, okay, like
Mhm.
he's that kind of guy. Um, And I think this is unironically, this is like the second time that we get to see Lana in the pool again. Because I remember the first time, I think she was under the influence. I forgot what it was. Not under drinking, of course, but she was acting very out of character. She's like pretty much being super provocative to Clark. Like, hey, Clark, do you want to get in the water with me? And of course, she takes off her whole clothes. She goes off swimming. And Clark is just like, Lana, like, what the heck? Like, what's gotten into you? Like, you would never do this. And
Well, that was
so,
episode 4 with the dreams.
no,
That was in, no?
this was season 2 or season 1.
Hmm. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, she was acting really, really bad. I forgot what it was, but eventually Whitney comes back from the army, quote unquote. Actually, I think that was that episode. Yeah, I think it was that episode when
Hmm.
Whitney, quote unquote, comes back, and she's just like, yeah, it's really actually no, I'm probably confusing it. Probably confusing it with another episode. But I just remember that Lana was just acting completely strange at one point. Also,
Hmm.
can we just say that Lana is like one of the most forgiving people of all time because it's like,
So
hey,
much.
Chloe, I saw you making out with Clark like multiple times at the coffee shop. And
Yeah.
she's just like, Chloe's just like, yeah, like I don't remember what happened. I got stung and I forgot and I can't remember anything what happened in
Mhm.
between. Do you know what happened, Lana? She's just like, yeah, I saw Clark making out with the chick, but it was nobody important. When in reality, it was Chloe herself, which I thought was like, oh
Mhm.
my God, like I can't believe Lana would say that. Like I thought, well, actually, no, I believe it because right, she's nice and she's not like a really bad
Yeah, she doesn't want
person.
to like make her feel bad, you know,
Exactly,
especially if she doesn't remember.
exactly. And I just, my God, I just feel really bad for both Chloe and Lana because Chloe's like, I love you, Clark, but you don't love me back. And then Lana's like, I love you, Clark, but you're so busy trying to be, Superman, right? Mini Superman almost.
Mhm.
And You love me too much that you're afraid that you're going to lose me. Also, can we just say that it's so convenient for whenever Clark asks his mom that, hey, did I make the wrong choice for not going out with Lana as my girlfriend? And she's just
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't know. And Clark is like, well, I missed it when you would say yes or no. And it's like, of course, the writers would do that because they don't want it to be that obvious. Because us, the
Yeah,
audience, we all know for a fact that, yes, they're meant to be together. Yes, they're meant
yeah,
to love each other. But of course, the show's got to be the way it is, right? Clark has like this dynamic of, yes, I love Lana, but I can't be together because I know I'm going to put her in danger.
yeah, and it sucks. It sucks all the way, man. It's horrible. I
Yeah,
wish there was an easier way.
I just get so infuriated. Again, I was so mad when season 2 ended, and it's just like, no, I don't want this anymore. I'm done. I'm just gonna be this. I'm gonna be a Toby now, and I'm gonna go to Metropolis and rob banks and not give a crap. Can we just say for a fact that are we just gonna have to assume that Metropolis PD is just like, yeah, that guy that robbed all the banks and all that, yeah, we don't care about him. You know, he's he's just
Mhm.
in the past. Like, like Clark just goes back to Smallville and then Metropolis just forgets him. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's like,
Nobody's
dude, they were in
looking.
the newspapers for like days and days, you know? It's like they
Yeah,
just decided to like stop looking for you out of nowhere, you know? It's like insane.
I just felt like, are we just gonna pretend that Clark didn't rob banks? Are we just gonna forgive him for that? Like, no consequences? Like, okay, all
And
right.
the thing is, he doesn't even mention that because I'm pretty sure he knows what he's doing, like to some degree, you know.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Like he doesn't say that at all to his parents. It's like, well, it makes sense, you know. He wants to keep it to himself, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like he would have said it at some point, and then the parents would be like, "It's okay, Clark. We forgive you.
Well, they
You're under
know.
the influence of the ring, you
They
know."
yeah, they know.
We were with him, robbing banks, John, forgiving him, which I remember now. He did look at the newspaper. He was like, "That's Clark."
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that they knew who he was, and even Pete told them like it's only getting worse from here, right?
Hmm.
Um. Also, can we just say it was the most? It was definitely one of the coolest moments when Jonathan Kent got temporary Superman powers to bring Clark
Oh,
back.
that was the best fight scene. Like, not the. It wasn't a huge fight scene, but I think that was a huge thing for that show.
Yeah, that was definitely a huge character development moment. Like the idea that Jonathan Kent is like, son, you're coming back with me whether you like it or not, boy. Like he
Mhm.
basically did like a Kratos almost of like you're gonna come back with me regardless. I don't care if I have to drag you. It's gonna
And
happen.
Clark's like, I don't think so. And it just shoves him. It's like, I'm back up. And just punches him. He throws him. It's like, holy cow. It's insane. I love it. I love that episode so much.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like season 3, like the first 2 episodes, are gotta be one of the most memorable episodes of the entire series. I can
Hmm.
I cannot wait for how they're gonna top it for the rest of the seasons. I don't know how they're gonna be able to top that, but those are
But I will say
definitely.
they've been doing pretty good for the next episodes. Like after 1 and 2, they've been doing good stuff. I will say at least up to 3 for the time being. Up to 7, I mean. Um, we had Magneto, we had the bullets, the kryptonite bullets, which was awesome. Uh, we had like the whole like stalker situation, which was, well, not really stalker. I'm saying stalker because I was like, oh, Lana's stalking Clark now, you know, at the beach, at the lake. It's like,
Well, that was just a
it's like, oh,
dream.
I know. But I put it as stalking because she was like, "What are you doing here? Why are you stalking me?" You know, like in the previous episode, for episode 3, and also for episode 7 for Magneto. Um, but yeah, and then for Sarah, the dream. Also, the kid's name was Ray. the mind reader.
Ah,
His name was Ray. I have to
yeah.
Google him real quick, but yeah, that was his name, Ray.
Ray. Yeah, he was such a nice.
X-ray.
He was such a nice little kid, and I like the actor. I always thought he was very believable. He always he always had that quiver lip of sadness, of course.
Mm,
Just a little extra, right? But I thought he was great. I really liked him, and
yeah, his acting was phenomenal. His little jokes made perfect sense
um,
in that time, which was awesome.
it was really funny.
Uh,
The few instances where like Lana would kiss his cheek, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I can definitely see why you'd want to wait." The anticipation, right? And Clark would just look at him like, "All right,
yeah,
kid, chill out."
calm down.
Yeah,
um, actually, well, this brings me back. Well,
it was
again to
Ryan. His
the
name was
readings.
Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan. I said Ryan.
He said Ray.
Oh shoot. Okay. Well, Ryan, Ray. You know, it's the same thing. Um, so I've been noticing a lot that Clark's just been destroying the locks for cabinets, the shelter house, like the hunting hut, for any situation. He just breaks the locks, and I'm like, aren't you supposed to be like covert? You know, like not breaking things. You know what I mean?
And
So, for example, episode 3, when we have the shooter, Clark's trying to find the guns or whatever, like the ammo, or like trying to see if that kid's the shooter. So he goes to his hunting hut and then sees that he has like a huge stack of guns, like locked behind a certain door. He just breaks the lock, bam, goes in, and I'm impressed that the guy never realized anything. Like he wasn't like somebody came in, you know. It's like who was it? It's like that never appeared. And also on episode 4, with Sora being in the hospital, not the hospital, but bedridden, you know. He breaks the medicine cabinet, so it was locked, and we do get to see that, like, because he broke it, the uncle was like, "How did he know?" You know. But I'm like, shouldn't he have taken the medicine at least? Like taking the whole liquid medicine,
are you referring?
so he doesn't do that.
Are you referring to when little kid that's in the basement? Not the little kid that's in the basement.
No, no, no. She was in the bed. This was in episode 4,
Oh, season 3.
season 3.
Okay.
Yeah, she's literally bedridden. You know,
Oh yeah,
she's like the
yeah,
whole dream.
yeah, the whole dream. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I honestly thought that was definitely one of the most scariest moments of the entire series. It's this Grim Reaper kind of thing where
Mm-hmm.
it's her uncle, and he's just like, you're never gonna wake up. You're gonna forever stay like this for the rest of your life, which is definitely scary. I like the character design. Definitely gave me again Grim Reaper vibes, which that was really really good. But yeah, I don't think I've ever felt any like that type of fear in any other episode. Other than
Yeah,
that,
it was pretty different. It was a different fear. I liked it. Kind of hope they do more of that again.
for reals. But yeah, no, I am genuinely surprised of how good this show is. I again didn't really have a whole lot of anticipation. I didn't have a lot of expectations. I just thought that this is just gonna be like any other show, whatever. I might get bored after a while, but I think if you get past season 1 and you get past mid season 2, like the second half,
Mhm.
it's when it really starts to take off, in my opinion, when it gets really, really good. And then season 3 again just starts off really awesome and just really
Just
goes.
running, starts running.
Yeah, that's when it
It's amazing.
really gets going and it's really awesome. And if you can get past season 1 and half of season 2, you're in for a treat. I highly recommend it. And again, coming from someone like me who is predominantly a Batman kind of guy who loves watching The Dark Knight Returns, I always thought Superman was really just this guy who always wants to do the
A
right
goody two
thing.
shoe.
Yeah, the goody,
Always does a
exactly.
good thing.
Right, always wanting to do the right thing no matter what. It makes the right decisions every single time. That's one of the reasons why I never really was a big fan of Superman. But watching Smallville has changed my opinion on that, especially in today's world where nowadays we all have very much a lot of we see a lot of Superman alike in other shows like Omni-Man from
Hmm.
Invincible, Homelander from The Boys. We get to see a different light in people who have like Superman like abilities, acting evil or acting of their own accord. I feel like now it's only become, or at least what I feel like, it's really become a lot more popular in recent times, especially with Invincible specifically. I feel like that show alone has kind of really popularized Superman like um
Characters.
yeah, characters, abilities.
Yeah.
I just never felt that before. Like, I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to say that Superman never had this uh
Alter
popularity, never
ego.
had this liking from other people. I mean, of course it's always been there, but I only feel like now it's really gone at a higher level because of the shows again that I mentioned before and painting the Superman ethos in a much more evil light, especially with two of the characters that I mentioned, Homelander and um Omni Man, having this sense of like we're gonna take over planet Earth, which is kind of ironic if you think about it, because Clark's biological dad is the exact same way of like Clark, you are meant to
Yeah.
be the ruler of this planet,
Hmm.
which I find so interesting because on almost every other medium and every other show, you kind of feel that sense of like all these godlike figures. They really just want to take over the world and be kings, right? Be kings of planet Earth. Um, which I find that kind of interesting because they're all kind of coming from almost from the same cloth, almost, if you get my drift. But other than that, though, yeah, I feel like Smallville has definitely changed my opinion on Clark and Superman in general. I
Hmm.
do like the idea that this show paints a different picture of Clark. This is a show where Clark makes mistakes. He learns. He has to live with those consequences, like Jonathan said. And because again, in many other mediums, you see Clark Superman as again always making the right choice and making the tr- trying to be as righteous and protective as he can, right? In this show, there's sometimes a little bit of jealousy, there's a little bit of selfishness. He really wants Lana to be with him. He doesn't like seeing her with anybody else, right? That's a very humane thing to feel. And seeing those kinds of moments, those human-like emotions in Clark, I feel like you don't really get to see that as much as like in the movies, like The Man of Steel, because of our already he's older, he's a little bit wiser at that point, whereas
Yeah.
here, he's still just a teenager. He's still trying to figure things out. He's still trying to it's almost like Spider-Man, right? He's trying to learn not just his abilities, but of course the idea that with great power comes
Responsibilities.
with great responsibility, right? Obviously I'm putting both Marvel and DC together, but there is a lot of similarities in the
Yeah.
character in that regard. But
And I will say it helps a little bit with the new show with the Superman and Lois. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it actually.
Uh, I have seen it. At least I think I caught up to like what was it, season 3 or 2, wherever they were at the time. Um, I didn't like it too much. I will say. Um, yeah, they're grown ups. We have the two sons of Clark. We get to see them in high school. Which is nice. Uh, it's kind of the same scenarios. It's like we get to see them gaining their abilities throughout the show. We see the kryptonites and all that stuff, but it's not as crazy as Smallville when it comes to their villains and the consequences. That's for sure.
Of course.
I, yeah. Um, for the time being, I'm not a huge fan of Superman and Lois. I personally don't like Lois, uh, mostly because the show Grimm, uh, that actress appears there as well. I did not like her there. It's just, I just don't like the actress. I don't like her.
It
She's a
happens.
great actress, but I just don't like her. And she's the main role in Superman and Lois. So yeah, a little bit because of that. I may not like the show, but I still give it a go regardless. Character development is okay for the time being. I haven't seen the latest episodes or the season, but we'll see how it goes in the future. I know that they did a whole paradox universe, which was interesting, but overall, it still doesn't hold up the candlelight to Smallville. I'd say. I genuinely think Smallville is superior to Superman and Lois. No, Clark. Yeah, Superman and Lois.
Yeah, no, very
Yeah.
interesting you say that because, yeah, I because of Smallville, it just makes me want to watch Superman, the animated series, because I want to
Mm-hmm.
watch that. The only reference that I have on that show is when he's fighting against General Zod with the whole laser beam and all that, which I thought was one of the most memorable moments of that animated series. And on top of that, I think it's when he's fighting against what's his arch not arch enemy,
Nemesis.
but it's like the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of Clark, of Superman,
Oh,
Zorro, or like he has like a backwards S.
yeah.
I I
I
remember in the
he
episode
actually
there's like
appears
two.
in Superman and Lois. He actually appears there, which is interesting. Just saying.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Um
Superman.
the reason why I bring that up because that's like been one of the most.
Bizarro. It's
Yeah,
Bizarro.
Bizarro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was like
Yeah.
Zorro something, but it's Bizarro.
Yeah.
I'll never forget like the one episode where Clark. There's like two clones of Clark. There's the original one, and then there's the Bizarro one. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget watching this. Like I thought it was the most craziest thing I've ever seen in a Superman show, where he starts to change color, like he starts losing almost like texture of his skin, and he starts transforming into this creature like beast, and he's just like, what is happening to me? And all of a sudden, yeah, he becomes Bizarro, and his S starts to change backwards. And I just thought it was so weird coming from a show like that. And after watching Smallville, it just makes me want to rewatch it again because I want to look at it. I feel like I would have a different perspective on it. I haven't seen any of the show, the animated series. I mean, quite a long time, right? I've seen the Batman animated series, of course, but I've never completed fully watching the Superman animated series, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. I've heard a lot of people say it's like definitely worth watching. So I feel like Smallville definitely kind of paves a good roadmap for that. I think it really, in the universe, it gives a different meaning to a lot of the characters and their relationships. Again, I never would have thought in a million years that Clark and Lex are somewhat closely related. I'm not meaning literally in siblings, but I literally mean in the sense that the Luthers and the Kents have like a very tight relationship dating
Yeah,
back
through history.
through
Like
history.
all I think what was in 1960s, technically, at least as far as we can tell, with the episode 6 when they go
Yeah,
back in time.
yeah, and I thought it was so interesting at the fact that Lex's grandfather tries killing Clark's dad, but in the end, when we watch Smallville, it's Grandpa Kent, his son Jonathan, ends up taking Jor-El's son Clark, which I thought
Which
was.
is John or Josh in there,
What do you mean?
right?
What do you
It was
mean,
called
Josh?
Josh or John. He called himself John instead of Jor-El. Was it John or Josh?
I don't remember his name. If it was Josh or
Yeah.
John. I I think it was Joe. It was Joe. His name was
Oh,
Joe.
Joe. Joe. Yeah. It was your average Joe. Bam.
And I just I thought it was very interesting of like, hey, your son is gonna take care of my son,
Yep.
which I thought was very interesting. It's like a swap almost. Like
And Clark is like, you were chosen to be my father. And I was like, oh my
I
god,
like that.
like
I really like that.
that's so cool.
I think that really does kind of give it a better perspective rather than the sense of like, oh, the Clarks just so happen to be in the area. They just so happen to
Yeah.
be there at that given moment in time and they were
No,
able to
they
get
were
Clark.
meant to be them. They were
Yeah,
meant to be his
they
fathers.
were meant
Because
to be his parents. Yeah.
Jor-El, he was like, these people are amazing, you know? It's like, I want my son to be just like them. So I'm gonna send my son to Earth to them so they can raise him just right, you know? I was like, that is awesome. Like the best thing ever.
We see that later on, but again, we have this notion of Jor-El being like this authoritative
Evil
father,
bitch person.
evil. Yeah, he's just telling Clark like you are meant to have this destiny of you're gonna rule this planet, you're gonna rule everyone on Earth, and you're gonna be the king almost, the ruler, right? Um,
Yeah.
which is kind of contrasty the way we see it in I think it was like what episode 7, episode 6 of season 3, where we get the
Yeah.
backstory of Clark's dad. Supposedly he was sent there as like his punishment from his
Mhm.
father.
Just like the Lexus. The Luthers, just like the Luthers.
Yeah, that immediately reminded me of Lex. It's like, oh my god, like they very much almost have like the same dynamics almost of Jor-El having a bad relationship with his father, and it's very similar
Mhm.
to Lex and his dad with Lionel. Again, like there's so many similarities between the Kents and the Luthers, even though they're from different planets, different galaxies, I'd say. Um,
Yeah.
there's a
The
lot.
similarities are still there, man.
The
No matter
civil,
how
yeah,
far you go, there are always going to be similarities. It's amazing.
yeah, it's crazy, and even then, just from what we currently watch, it just makes me want to watch more and find out
Hmm.
more about Clark's past and where he come from, and really understand why his dad is like this authoritative figure and just wants to tell Clark, hey, like you're supposed to rule this planet, but really why, right? Why is that the case? I mean, was that his mission? Was that his only main task in life, to really just rule everybody and just become a ruler? I don't know, right? We don't know, but of course, because of the Kents, they've changed the course of history, right? They've protected Clark, they give
Yeah.
him the love and the warming care of any normal family. But now Clark has this responsibility. He holds this responsibility of like, hey, I'm supposed to be something greater than myself and really protect those around me, not just those I care about, for anyone that needs help. That is my role with these powers and abilities, right? Comes with great responsibility again. Um, but yeah, I just, again, the Clarks really are the MVPs of the show. They're really the ones that hold um, a lot of
They
influence
hooked everybody together.
under Clark, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just nice to see that, man. It's really nice, and just understanding where Clark comes from and his history and how he was raised in his early years. Like, I mean, I don't know. This idea that Clark had to fight all these enemies beforehand as he was a teenager. I mean, I don't know how far I would believe that, right? I mean,
Well, to some degree, I'll believe it, because he did have to figure out how to use his powers at some point, right?
yeah, absolutely. That's a very
Yeah.
valid point. And yeah, he had to be able to get used to his powers, right? He wouldn't have been
Mhm.
like Mark Grayson from Invincible, where he got his powers later on, puberty, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh great, I have all these powers, woo! Let me just learn from my dad, right?
Yeah,
He didn't have that same luxury, and of course, he has to eventually learn it on his.
which technically that's how Superman and Lois. That's how that works through puberty. They get their powers.
Right.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense a little bit, half and half. But yeah.
A little bit for sure.
Mhm.
But
Uh,
but yeah, no, I think I'm really looking forward to Smallville and the rest of the other seasons. I mean, again, we're only on season 3. There are still 7 other seasons to go. I don't know how they're going to be
mhm.
able to top it. I don't know what other topics or other subjects they're going to dive into, but I'm really looking
I
forward
just
to
don't want
it.
to see Martha go away. That's all. I really hope they don't show this, but it might happen in
Yeah,
the end of the seasons.
I hope it doesn't. But I would say protect Jonathan Kent at all costs because I feel like he holds really the most power and influence over Clark.
Mhm.
He's always the voice of reasoning to Clark and telling him like, hey, listen, son, like, yeah, life sucks sometimes, but that's really the way you got to deal with it and move on, right? Especially
Yeah.
whether it be love or jealousy or anything revolving with relationships. Jonathan has always been that voice of like, hey, like, this is normal, this is okay, like what you're feeling is what any other human would feel. But I think most
Mhm.
importantly, he's always the one that makes sure like Clark, he he always entrusts Clark in the sense that he always wants to make sure that he is loved and cared for and never wants him to feel the sense of like, look, we are not just humans picked you up and loved you from day one.
Yeah.
We are truly your family. We love you. And,
Yeah. We're not like your step parents or whatever. We really are your parents. That's how much love they have.
right.
Like
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's really great. And I really love to see that. Like, especially when going back to Clark's biological dad, when he first kind of gets that interaction with them from the spaceship,
Mhm.
he tells Jonathan like, "Oh, Dad, like I don't know if my biological dad is telling me that I should take over Earth, and that's my destiny, and if bad things are gonna
Yeah.
happen if I don't do that." And of course, Jonathan reassures him and says, "Son, like you are not meant to do that." Because in reality, it's really up to you. That's your
Mm.
choice to make. Everybody has a
Yeah.
choice. That's one of the things about this show, right? Everybody has
And
a
this is your
choice.
choice.
Exactly. Yeah. I really love to see that. Um, it's great. I think Smallville has really changed my perspective on Superman. See him more in a completely different light, in a sense of like, hey, he almost very much feels like Mark Grayson from Invincible, where he had to learn how to use his powers.
Yeah.
He had to learn from his mistakes. He had to learn from all the choices he made. Because of course, in any other medium, you feel the sense that Clark is this person who was born the way he is. He always makes
It
the
was
right choice.
perfect from
Yeah,
the
perfect from
beginning.
the beginning. But Smallville doesn't paint him in that picture. It shows him that he's just like one of us. Even though he's from another planet, he still makes mistakes like us, and I really like that because I mean I think that's what really brings depth to the character and really shows that hey, he just because he's Superman doesn't necessarily mean that he's gonna make the right choice every time. The only way he
Yeah.
becomes that person
If they're the right choices
is by
and
making
experience.
experience from making the mistakes and then learning from them. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I
It keeps the whole show grounded. Though it does take
exactly.
it a bit far in some cases, but it brings it right back.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think with
Yeah.
that, we're gonna end it here. We're
Oh
definitely gonna
boy.
have a lot to say more with the later seasons. I know we're gonna continue watching. We're gonna continue
Probably
making
watch like what, 2 more seasons and then come back? Or
possible
just we'll
possibly.
probably come back after season 3. After we finish season 3, we'll probably come back.
I would say that too,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to see what we have in store. Because I still have so many questions with Clark and the whole ordeal with Mister Edge. I mean, I knew for sure he was going to come back at some point, and I know there's like a little bit of a relationship still there, but yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of moments in the show and a lot of things that I just can't wait to see and how the show is going to answer them. So
Yeah.
yeah. I am really looking forward to what season 3 has in
There's
store
more.
for us.
More.
And yeah, I really like the show now. I'm very much surprised. I didn't think I would fall in love with the show as much as I am now, but it's really
You're
good. It's really
welcome.
great, and definitely recommend it to other people to
Yeah.
watch it. So,
And if you've seen up to where we're at, just leave a comment down below, Um, and I know we did miss a handful of items, like Mr. White, the journalist, that was a huge thing.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely had a large play in it, and well, I mean, we did talk about it a little bit in the sense that he asked a lot of major questions to Jonathan of like, hey, why would you keep your son in secret?
Oh no. This is season 3, not uh 2 or 1. But
Okay.
this was when what was his name? Yeah, it was Mr. White. Um, when he literally sees Clark running in front of him when he's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
drinking and all
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff,
yeah, yeah. I get you. I get you. Yeah, we didn't talk about that,
Yeah.
but we can talk about that.
Also, we did not talk about that uh the school computers have alien computers. Like, come on. Come on.
Alien computers.
Yeah, they had alien.
Interesting.
Like, the Luther Corp is really putting a lot of money in that school.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Those desktops ain't cheap,
the whole
especially at that
the
time.
whole Lionel Luther and Chloe relationship. Yeah, that's its own stuff. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about
Yeah.
that next time. However, if
Hmm.
you guys enjoy watching this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to see more content like this. And yeah, we'll definitely have a lot more episodes like this to talk about not just Smallville, but we'll have other shows in here.
Hopefully, hopefully,
And
and more special guests coming in. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. With that being said, guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.